Welcome to another episode of What's Up, Irvine. I'm Curtis Drever, your host, and this podcast is about everything that makes Irvine such a great city. Its people, culture, influence, and opportunities. My hope is that by following us, you'll learn something new and interesting about our city and feel more connected in our community. So today in our studio, we have a special guest, Claudia Bonilla Keller, the CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank right here in Irvine. So welcome, Claudia.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. Looking forward to talking with you further. And before we jump into the conversation, I wanted to read a little bit of your biography, your bio here. So I'm going to jump into that.
Okay.
So Claudia, on January 1st, 2022, Claudia became Chief Executive Officer at Second Harvest, where she previously worked as Chief Mission Officer. The daughter of immigrants who is bilingual, she becomes the food bank's second female CEO to hold the top leadership position. Second Harvest was founded in 1983 and today employs 87. In 2021, they distributed nearly 60 million pounds of food through its partner network and served over 489,000 people per month on average. That's an astounding thing. We'll talk about that some more. Prior to joining Second Harvest, Claudia was with LA Promise Fund, American Heart Association, and St. John Knits, which is in the fashion industry for those who may not recognize St. John. She holds a bachelor's degree from UC Irvine and a master's in public administration from Cal State Fullerton. In her personal time, she's involved in several Orange County organizations and is a member of the Dean's Leadership Society at UCI, where she received the Distinguished Alumni Award from the School of Social Sciences. She's a planning commissioner with the city of Placentia and a master gardener. And I heard you also play soccer too, but you have a master gardener. So we'll talk about that some more too. So welcome again to the show. Thanks for spending the time with us today. So
happy to be here.
Okay, well, I'd like to start with just getting to know you about you as a person. So I'll just jump into some things about maybe your childhood. So, Sure. What is the best lesson your mom or dad taught you?
So, two lessons really. Most people don't know that English is not my first language. Mm-hmm. So my parents were very, very adamant that I would learn English and keep Spanish at the same time. So they wanted to raise me bilingual, and they always said, don't lose your first language because that will come in handy. And it has all my life. As an adult, and probably more practical advice, my stepfather told me before I got married, make sure this is the person that you want to marry and that you don't want to change them, because who they are now is who they're going to be.
I'm not going to change.
Really good advice that served me well. And it served me particularly well when my marriage ended, actually. After 16 years, my ex and I, we were divorced. But we didn't have an acrimonious divorce. We continued to co-parent my son, and today he's one of my best friends. And I am godmother to his daughter, to my son's half-sister. And I always chalk it up to I never forgot who he was when I met him, and what a good father he was, and that he really didn't change, that perhaps our marriage ran its course and ended, but did not fail. And I've often given that same advice to young women: make sure that you're marrying the person you plan to be with, and remember why you met that person when it gets tough.
That is pretty amazing, though, that that doesn't always happen, where you divorce, but you stay good friends.
Yeah.
So that's great. I mean, that part's great.
Yes.
Not the other part. But okay, well, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
What some other things from your childhood? What do you have a fond memory as a child? Or what is a fond memory you have?
I grew up in a house that loved music, Latin music, pop music. I grew up in the era of disco, so there was always music at my house. And for some reason, I figured out that, a stage was a place to dance. So I would jump up on the coffee table, or I would jump up on any surface and dance. And my parents thought this was cute and funny, and I did it. And it only went wrong when I traveled to my mother's home country of El Salvador to visit relatives, and we visited my grandfather's tomb, which in that part of the world, many of the tombs are raised marble.
Okay, right.
But to a 4-year-old, raised marble is just a stage, and what ensued was I jumped up on that stage and started dancing, and I'm one of those few people that can say with I don't know if it's pride, but I danced on my grandfather's grave, but somehow I think he's okay with it. I think he's okay with it.
Do you actually remember doing that too?
I have a recollection of
Yeah.
it. My memories really are of my mother telling the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that helps though.
Sure,
It's like,
sure.
it's there.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that's a good story actually, a fond memory. So,
Yeah.
do you still dance?
Whenever I can, I will. I love to dance.
Salsa?
Yeah, any kind of Latin music.
Okay.
I grew up a dancer, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Not something else.
Mm-hmm.
What is a major tipping point in your life that really changed your course or direction?
There's a couple. One, it's funny, coincides the same year that the food bank was founded, not related. 1983, when I graduated from high school, I came to Irvine to attend the
Okay.
University of California at Irvine. And back then, I didn't get to tour the campus. I literally came to the campus sight unseen and was very lucky to come into a wonderful campus where I had great experiences. So I think my college experience was quite formative. I think the other formative experience in my life was my mid kind of life career change.
Okay.
At 40 years of age, I decided that, as fun as the fashion industry was, that it wasn't necessarily what I wanted on my tombstone, not to be corny.
Okay.
I wanted to put that great education to work, really maybe serving a greater good. And I explored careers in the nonprofit world.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I could make the jump, but I was able to. I took a job right from St. John as a marketing director. I ended up going to Los Angeles to serve the American Heart Association as the executive director for LA County.
Okay. So from fashion, you jumped in
To nonprofit, and that's a major
That
course.
is a major.
Yeah,
That's a major shift.
that's a big shift.
Kind of pivotal.
Yeah, it changed my life. It changed how I view life, and I continued my education because of that shift. And I never looked back, and I never regretted it.
Yeah, obviously we wouldn't be talking, or you wouldn't be at the food bank most likely
No.
if that didn't happen.
That's
So
right. That's right.
Okay. Claudia, what brought you to Irvine?
Wow. So, as I mentioned, in 1983, I came here for college to attend the University of California at Irvine, but I keep coming back. I can't leave.
Can't leave. Okay.
In 1995, I returned to work at St. John Knits here in
Okay,
Irvine,
right.
and I stayed there for 10 years as marketing director, and then subsequently left for the American Heart Association. But in 2019, I saw a job posting for Second Harvest in Irvine.
Okay.
And I went for it. So I'm back here for my third tour of service in Irvine. And I couldn't be happier because every time I come back to Irvine, I mean, think about it, 1983, 1995, 2020, it's a different city.
Yeah, it's changed just a little bit, right?
It changes and it grows and it becomes more dynamic and just, a wonderful city to live in, work in, and play in. So I'm just thrilled to be here at this point in my life and in my career.
Okay. It looks like you can't leave now.
I can't leave.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What has being CEO, so we're talking about life, what has being CEO taught you about life?
Oh, well, I think, when you work in nonprofit management, CEO is kind of that pinnacle that many people, not all people, but many people see themselves working towards. I didn't always see myself working toward it.
Okay.
Actually, for a long time, I'd been a good number two to other CEOs, and I thought, well, this is my lane. I'm a good number two. I can take over in a pinch, but
Yeah, it's easier that way,
it's a little bit easier,
Yeah.
and you can still learn, but when I applied for the job at the food bank, I thought, well, this is closer to home. That was probably my motivating factor, but I realized that I could see myself as CEO. But when you get the job, when it's actually handed to you, at least I looked at it like I have to be a certain way. I have to be
Okay.
a certain way to be a good CEO. A good CEO does A, B, and C, and I have to figure out what those things are to be a good CEO, and that's somewhat stressful.
I bet.
It's. I think that's where the imposter syndrome comes from. This feeling
Okay.
that I'm not good enough. And what I've come to realize is being a CEO of any organization or leading any worthwhile effort is you really have to be able to manage situations. You have to be able to manage different people.
Right.
And you have to be adaptable and flexible to the situation because especially something like a nonprofit or a food bank, it calls for different leadership traits and skills almost literally every day. I mean, COVID is a great example.
Yeah.
I started as chief mission officer in January of 2020, and literally 7 weeks later, we were in a
Yeah,
pandemic. So
that kind of shifted things a lot.
whatever I
Yeah.
thought I was going to do was right out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you stepped in as CEO, did you feel like you had to kind of be like the previous CEO a little bit, like expectations were set there until you could,
Sure.
basically carve your own path? And,
I think that's human nature to think I have to be
Yeah.
as good as the guy before me. I have to live up to his expectations. I was very close with my predecessor.
Okay.
He brought me to the food bank. He was an excellent CEO, Harold Herman.
Okay.
And in many ways, you don't want to let him down, right?
Right.
Because they brought you to the role. There's the board of directors who has expectations of you as well. But the reality is you grow into a CEO role as an independent, unique individual. So could never be like him,
Yeah.
just like he can't be like me. You really have to find your own way to do what needs to be done every single day in every crisis situation. And if you can figure out a way to be true to yourself and lead an organization, I truly believe you can be a successful CEO. If you're trying to be somebody else,
Yeah.
you'll either fail or be miserable, or both.
Yeah, knowing yourself,
That's right.
yes, and being comfortable with that.
That's right.
Is, yes. So, what do you like most about being CEO?
Oh, well, it's quite dynamic. I mean, we have a 120,000-foot facility at the Great Park in Irvine of 87 employees. And one day we could be talking about planning a fundraising walk, which we do on September 9th of this year. We'll
There
do
you
the
go. That's
walk.
okay.
We'll
You
do the
can
walk
talk.
to feed OC at Tanaka
Yeah.
Farms here in Irvine. And the next day we could be trying to figure out how we clear out more space in our distribution center to bring in more food.
Right.
And then on another day, I might be out doing events like this and interviews like this, promoting the food bank and raising awareness. So every day is not the same. And that's probably the most fun about it. I consider
Yeah.
myself a lifelong learner, and I learn something every single week at the food bank.
Okay. And I think, pausing for a moment, I think just sharing with our viewers just having the food bank, a lot of people don't realize what the food bank is and what it means, and being in Irvine and all that.
Yeah,
Can you share just
sure.
like,
I think a lot of people confuse a food bank with a food pantry.
yes.
Food banks are large organizations. There are two here in Orange County. There's Orange County Food Bank in Garden Grove, and then there's Second Harvest Food Bank here in the city of Irvine. And our food bank services 300 pantries and points of distribution throughout the county. And right now we're serving close to 370,000 people on average per month. As far as Second Harvest goes, that is all happening in the city of Irvine. And I
Yeah.
often say that Irvine feeds much of Orange County, certainly during the crisis.
Yeah.
The city of Irvine stepped up. So I think it's important for residents to know that food banks are big, huge distribution centers, big, huge distribution centers for pantries. And then pantries, much like storefronts, distribute those foods to individuals.
Yeah, you're the big hub.
Yes, we're like the Ralphs or the Albertsons distribution center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also share the newly acquired agriculture property.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
don't you share that, because then what that means.
Sure. So that makes us a little unique in food banking. We actually operate a 30-acre farm over at the South Coast Regional Extension Center,
Okay.
Research and Extension Center off of Irvine Boulevard.
I've been there.
It's fabulous
Yes,
with the
yeah.
University of California. And we are growing cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, and broccolini right now. The farm has output almost 3 million pounds in about a year and a half of being in operation.
Wow.
So that food literally is going from Irvine to Second Harvest to the homes of those that are food and nutritionally
So it's
insecure.
very fresh food staying in Orange
Extremely,
County.
Yes, and reducing our carbon footprint, and it's a wonderful enterprise. We have one of the largest farms in the nation in terms of food banks.
In the nation.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good. I think this is about Irvine. It's good to know what's going on in our own city, right?
That's right.
So, that was some of the positives of the job. What are the drawbacks or most challenging parts?
I think it's the what's the word, that the heaviness, I think, of the mission. When I worked in the fashion industry, which was fun, and there were good days and bad days, the worst you worried about was a skirt maybe not selling, or
Okay.
things like that. if I or we don't do our job well at Second Harvest, some folks may not eat. What's
Yes.
that phrase? It's not brain surgery. Sure, my job isn't brain surgery, but a lot of people depend on us for their day-to-day nutritional needs, and that's a burden we don't take lightly.
Yes, that things can change in the food distribution system, and all of a sudden you're impacted, but you know how that impacts
Sure.
the rest of Orange County.
I mean, look at inflation. Look at, you and I are paying,
yeah.
what are we paying for eggs and milk? Imagine folks that are on a limited budget,
Yeah.
seniors on a limited budget. It really, some things we don't even know as everyday citizens really impact some people tremendously.
So, with that, how can our viewers help you?
Sure. We rely on the community.
Okay.
We rely on the community for our resources, financial resources, so donations are always welcome.
Okay.
Our food pantries need food donations, so we rely on the community for that. And, of course, volunteers. Second Harvest is a great place to volunteer. We have volunteer shifts Tuesday through Friday at the distribution center at the Great Park. And then Tuesday through Saturday at the Harvest Solutions Farm up on Irvine Boulevard.
And that's for harvesting.
That's for
actually
harvesting, planting, weeding. And I tell people,
yeah.
it's not a garden, folks. It's a farm.
It's a farm
Yes.
with hose and everything.
With hose,
so,
and
yeah.
you're gonna squat and bend and sweat and get dirty, but you're also going to have fun and do something great for the community.
On about average, like for volunteers, like what do you need per day to help? Like,
At Harvest Solutions, we can't get enough volunteers. We're probably averaging about 40 a day, but we can take as many as 100.
that's a lot.
Yeah, and when it rains, we get a little bit behind because we don't have volunteers don't come out when it rains. So
Volunteers can not show up.
they don't show up, and
Yeah.
I don't know that I would either. So we always need a lot of volunteers at Harvest Solutions. We can take volunteer shifts as small as 10 and 20 in our distribution center, and as
Okay.
big as 50 and 60
Okay.
to help us work the food in the distribution center.
So yeah, I think years ago we volunteered there, and I volunteered in the Garden Grove one as well. So
Very
I
good.
have a sense for that.
Very good.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple things of whenever you do have spare time. Some things. Do you have a hobby that you gravitate to?
I do a few things. So I love to travel.
Okay.
Can't do that all the time, but I do enjoy traveling and going to new places. I am a master gardener.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What does that mean?
So the Master Gardeners are a program of the University of California's Agricultural and Natural Resources Division.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is.
Yes. Okay.
Every land-grant university in the country, so your Michigan State, your University of Texas, have similar programs where they take the knowledge of the public university
Okay.
and they impart it to volunteers who have an interest in gardening. And horticulture and agriculture. And for about 6 months training, I went to class every Saturday for 4 months.
Okay, wow, that's a commitment.
It is. And you learn evidence-based scientific methods of gardening, pesticide-free, integrated pest management, you name
soil
it.
and-
Soils, plants, you name it, we learn it. And the idea is for that knowledge and for that certification, you get the honor then of turning around and volunteering in the community. So
Okay.
Master Gardeners are committed to volunteering at least 25 hours a year
Okay.
and doing 12 hours of continuing education. So
That's a fair amount.
it's a fair amount,
Yeah.
but if you love to garden, it's not a chore. It's really an act of joy and giving back to the community.
Therapy could
Very
be.
therapeutic.
Yeah.
I have a garden in my home, so I'm always doing that. And I love to garden with children. In Los Angeles, I open school gardens. So gardening with littles, right, with 5 and 6 and
Oh.
7-year-olds.
They don't know where things come from, right?
No. I've watched kids eat their first tomato.
They're like, that's a tomato?
That's a
or
tomato.
like, where's the carrot
Vegetables
come
don't
from?
come from the market, kids.
Yes.
They come from farms.
Yeah, their eyes like light
That's
up. Like,
right.
oh my gosh.
That's right. So I love doing that. And then a lot of people are surprised to know that I play organized soccer, women's soccer. Well, women's and co-ed. So I should say
Okay.
both. Yeah.
So are you what position?
I'm a defense. I play defense. My
Defend.
nature is defense. Probably
Okay.
my tall stature. I play play goalie a lot.
do goalie.
I do
Okay,
goalie
you're-
because I'm tall.
Okay.
And not because I'm particularly skilled. But I do. I'm a right back. That's my nature.
Okay.
But I play every Friday night with my partner. We play on a co-ed team, and then I play every Sunday in the Orange County Women's Soccer
That's
League.
a lot too.
Yeah.
So that's twice a week.
Well, Fridays and Sundays, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I play indoor and I play full field over in Fountain Valley.
Okay. I'll stay in shape that way.
Or get hurt, but
Or get hurt, right. Yeah, that's the goal. Don't get hurt.
It's
have
good for
fun.
my heart, maybe not so good for my knees. Yeah.
So is that a big league, though? Or a big-
Yeah, actually, in Fullerton, there's an indoor arena that has, on average, it has 5 different leagues with an average of 8 teams per league. So that's
Okay.
huge in North County.
Yeah.
And then the Orange County Women's Soccer League has 18 and over, 25, 30, 40, 50, over 60, and over 70.
Really?
Yes, in the women's league. Yeah. The ladies,
That's amazing.
The ladies are still out there, even if they're a little bit slower. They're still
They're
playing,
moving.
and they're a lot smarter about their soccer.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
may wisely move.
They
to save
wisely
their
move.
energy and
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah. So every
wow.
Sunday, it's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of just kind of fun facts, so food. I always like talking about food.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go out, what's your go-to? What type of food?
So my favorite cuisine is Mexican.
Okay.
I've traveled all over Mexico, so the cuisine of Mexico is amazing and varied and delicious. But here at home, in my hometown of Placentia, you can always find me at El Farolito on Bradford Avenue in Old Placentia.
Yes.
Been a mainstay in Placentia for about 35 years, and it is delicious.
It is delicious.
Yeah.
Okay, and your go-to dish?
My go-to dish there is arroz con pollo.
Okay, chicken and rice. Do you like spicy food then? Do you
Actually, I don't like spicy
Okay.
food, and people are surprised. They said, "Oh, you're Latina, you don't like spicy food," and I'm like, "All Latins don't like spicy food."
Yeah, Colombian. 'cause
Colombian and
they don't like- they don't like spice-
Salvadorans, we don't eat spicy food.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I've been to Colombia, and they didn't like
Yeah,
spice.
not so much.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, those are good fun facts. And so gardening, soccer, and food, those go really well together. So one question I kind of want to throw out there as we wind down our interview is, what would you like? What's a takeaway that our viewers, that you can give our viewers about you? Something, either a fun fact or like that describes you.
Yeah, I think with all the different facets of my life that we've talked about, and I don't think I'm that fascinating a person, but I do a lot of stuff. My greatest accomplishment, what I'm the proudest of, is my son.
Okay.
My son is a public school teacher here in Orange County. As a matter of fact, in the district that he graduated from high school from. He holds a master's in education. And when he was graduating from high school, he was asked what he wanted to do with his life. And he said he wanted to do something good for the world.
Okay.
And at that point, I had made my switch into nonprofit work. And I was so proud of him for even saying that. I don't know that I doubted or I couldn't have believed that he would actually make good on it. And today he's a wonderful public school teacher. He teaches 8th grade in the city of Placentia. And I couldn't be more proud of him and how he's grown into a wonderful young man.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you for sharing about that. And thank you for being our guest. And as we wrap up today's episode, I want to thank you also for joining us on What's Up Irvine. And if you are following us, would you just like us or follow us on whatever social media you use? And also, if you have any ideas for topics or people that you'd like us to interview or talk about, send us an email at info@loveirvine.org. Send an email to info@loveirvine.org. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.